Hey everybody, happy Thursday. This is Matt from the Home for Wayward Records. Just wanted to come by and talk about some albums. I got a lot today, got a lot to talk about. That's just because I kind of have a theme. And the theme really came out of some posts I was doing today on Instagram, which was I kind of got into a run of 1991 records. And if you're a music fan, you know what 1991 was for music. Just so many great records and so much wonderful stuff coming out, and kind of a little bit of a huge bit of a sea change that happened. So there's an amazing list of records that came out that year to talk about. I was trying to think of presenting a few and talking about them, and then that went by the wayside because there's so many great ones that I couldn't think of just the handful I wanted to do. And then the list kind of ballooned to a much larger one. So I decided, and I got it down to 19. So the top 19 records of 1991. That fits, sort of, right? So it's still a lot, so we're not going to go in depth with a ton of them, but I am going to talk about a few. But when I was doing it, there's so many amazing records from that year that I felt bad about leaving some out. So before the list starts, so if I did 19, there's actually 22. So there's 3 more I wanted to put out here that I really liked from that year. Number 1, Lenny Kravitz, Mama Said. I liked Lenny Kravitz, Let Love Rule. This one came out with much more of a 70s influence. I really, really like this record. There's some great stuff on it. So Lenny Kravitz, Mama Said is another one. Not just for, rock and what became grunge and alternative or whatever. There was a lot of great rap and hip hop in 1991. One of those was the debut album by Cypress Hill, and that's just such a great record. Yeah, this thing's amazing. I love this album, and it didn't make the list. And then another one that came out in 1991 that I honestly wouldn't really get into until about a year later when I started working at a record store in a college town I lived in. But it came out in 1991, and it's one of my absolute favorite records of all time, and that's Richard Thompson, Rumor and Sigh. This is an incredible record from start to finish. Even if you took off 1952 Vincent Black Lightning, it would still be an amazing record, and that song is to me one of the best songs ever written. So it would definitely be on my list, but I really technically didn't get into it until probably 92, late 92, so I kind of kept it out for that purpose. So what did make my list, if those things, and a bunch of other stuff in here didn't make the list either, because there's a bunch. So what did make the list? This big stack of records right here. So I'm just going to go through it, and we'll kind of, we'll just kind of visit each one real quick. I'm going to start off, obviously, Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger. I loved Ultra Mega OK and Loud Love. Loud Love, I just devoured that record and loved it. And Bad Motorfinger kind of took a lot of that and dialed it up to 12 or 13. It's just such a great album. And it's sad Chris Cornell is gone and we don't get anything else from Soundgarden. That just sucks. But this record has always been one of my favorite albums. I remember a friend of mine, a friend of a friend, worked at a record store in Houston, and he had a promo tape of this like months early, and I got a dub of it and just listened to the crap out of it. So Bad Motorfinger, that's a great record. Slint, SLIDERLAND. I was very into Touch and Go records, so when stuff came out on Touch and Go, I would go pick it up because I liked so much it was on there, and this did not disappoint. It's just such a great record, and still is to this day. It still sounds like it's from another planet. So Slint, SLIDERLAND. In a totally different vein, kind of moving towards a little like still loud, but also this wonderful pop record. Teenage Fanclub, Bandwagonesque is an absolutely great record, and one that everybody should hear at least once. I love all the Teenage Fanclub records, but this was my gateway into them, and I still adore this record. I listened to it today and posted it. So Teenage Fanclub, Bandwagonesque. Again, something kind of completely different from that. Uncle Tupelo, Still Feel Gone. Kind of the origins of alt country, mixing in the sounds of country and punk rock and rock, out of St. Louis / Belleville, Illinois. And No Depression hooked me, and Still Feel Gone was equally as good. And this is still a record I end up listening to constantly, and it's still great. Gun, the first song on it's probably still one of my favorite Jeff Tweedy songs, and this one's fantastic. All right, just had a birthday this week. Mudhoney, Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge. Again, I was already super deep into Mudhoney and loved the crap out of them, and this came out and it was just so much more of the same greatness that already were. I was really fortunate. Some friends of mine and I, we drove down to Houston and got to see them play at a pretty small place with Urge Overkill opening and Gas Huffer, and that show was just amazing. Man, Gas Huffer was something to see. Urge Overkill played like we were in a 25,000 seat arena. It was just huge. And then Mudhoney was absolutely nuts. And we stood right in front of Steve Turner, and he just melted our faces all night long. So Mudhoney, Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge. It's hard to list a 1991 list without a few records. Soundgarden's obviously one of those. Another one is Smashing Pumpkins' Gish. It's for a debut album, it's such a fully formed concept and idea, and Billy Corgan had this so organized. I mean, honestly, Smashing Pumpkins even back then was sort of a vehicle of his with other people in it, and this was sort of like a perfect opening salvo for them. I got to see them December of '91. They played also in Houston, and that show was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, and Pearl Jam. And that show was crazy. Smashing Pumpkins just honestly kind of stole the show to me that night. And the funny thing about that is that tour, Smashing Pumpkins would drop off, and the middle act on that tour for the rest of it was Nirvana. So that tour at one point had, obviously not together, but Red Hot Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, and Pearl Jam. That's like a package tour that sells out, 80,000 seat stadiums in any other universe. So Smashing Pumpkins' Gish. Man, I remember hearing this for the first time and just, it's almost like, to me, one of those people you hear about Manchester Free Trade Hall Sex Pistol shows, and hearing that and going like, I can do that. Do it. I felt the same way about Superchunk, No Pocket for Kitty. There was just something about it that felt, it was so melodic and good and loud and messy and wonderful, and it made you feel like that could be what your band could be like. And I know the band I was in at the time, we covered Slack Mother, You Know What, live for a long time, and that's not on this record, but this is just such an incredible album. I still love this one. All the Superchunk records are great, and they're still a wonderful band. So Superchunk, No Pocket for Kitty. Want to have your mind blown and have your bowels loosened and wonder why someone is making that noise and how they can make that noise and why it's so wonderful? Jesus Lizard Goat. David Yao and Jesus Lizard. I don't know if I've ever... There's just not anybody else kind of like them, and I don't know how to describe it. If you've never heard the Jesus Lizard, go listen to them. I'll tell you one thing. Good luck. And if you make it through, probably like me, you will love them forever. And that's how I feel about them to this day. Jesus Lizard Goat, another great 91 record. These two, obviously, this next batch this goes together. We get Temple of the Dog. So obviously Andrew Wood died from Mother Love Bone, and that band breaks up, and he was Chris Cornell's roommate. And out of that, we get Temple of the Dog, which is part of Soundgarden and part of Mother Love Bone and part of what Mother Love Bone turns into their new singer, Eddie Vedder. And we get probably one of the greatest all-star record one-offs of all time, Temple of the Dog. And it's a great record. So, of course, that does bring us to Pearl Jam 10. I remember there was a girl we all knew in college, and she was, I remember her being kind of like the first, like, oh my God, giant Pearl Jam fan. And when we were, talking about Jesus Lizard and Primus and all this other stuff, she was like, Pearl Jam, Pearl Jam, Pearl Jam. And then it was funny how soon after that they would just explode and become massive. And obviously, Alive on MTV and Jeremy those obviously helped, but their live show also helped a lot because they were fantastic then. So Pearl Jam 10, another 91 record. I think we are just about halfway through this list now, and I just said their name. So another one, Primus, Sailing the Seas of Cheese. I loved Frizzle Fry. It was ridiculous and cool and silly. And as a bass player, listening to Les Claypool made me go, I can never do that. But I still loved it. And Sailing the Seas of Cheese was all that and more, and funnier and weirder and crazier. Another show I got to see in Houston with Tad opening, and Primus were amazing, and Tad was ridiculously good, and it was just like buckets of sweat flinging off of Tad the entire time, and it was beautiful, and they were fantastic. And probably the last time you could have seen them in a really kind of smallish place was on the first leg of this tour, so that was great to see. A few things that get kind of completely different there. I want to go ahead and roll through. Obviously, Nirvana Nevermind comes out in 91, and that blows up, and you know, lots of stuff changes, and we get a lot of different things from this. And it's a huge groundbreaking record. It's not my favorite Nirvana record, but it's Nevermind, and it's huge, and it is what it is. It's still a great record. It's just not my favorite of theirs. So we get into a little bit of different stuff from what this was. We get kind of Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I know that it's not really grunge, and it's not really noisy like some of this other stuff, and it's funk and rock and a little bit of everything. I will tell you, again, I saw this tour with Smashing Pumpkins and Pearl Jam, and it was a really good show. And I know it's easy to hate on the Red Hot Chili Peppers now with what they've kind of turned into. But back then they were a hell of a live band, and Frusciante was just absolutely amazing to see live. So I still like this record. All right, so what's different or weirder on the list? Primal Scream, Screamadelica. This one is just, it's different than almost everything around here. It's just a totally different feel and sound. It's like somewhere between a party and a rave and church, and it's just a beautiful, feel-good rock and roll. I don't know. It's out of every record in here except for the next one, this one's just sort of its own thing, and still sounds new and bright and fresh and beautiful today. And it's 31 years old, and I still love it. So Primal Scream, Screamadelica. Obviously, we can't have a 91 list and not have My Bloody Valentine Loveless on it. This is kind of what started this off this morning, was me spinning this, and let's do it with my new headphones I picked up, and those Sennheiser headphones make everything sound amazing. So I was listening to this, and just, I don't think there's a time I can listen to this record and I'm not blown away. Like it's blown my mind every time I've heard it for 31 years, and it still does, and I think it always will. And it's just such a beautiful, different document to a sound that one person in a band were going for, and they achieved it. And it's My Bloody Valentine Loveless. I loved, we used to, we talked about Cypress Hill earlier. There were some rap records that did make the list that I loved. My friend circle and I, we all absolutely adored, and I think everybody should, A Tribe Called Quest, The Low End Theory. This is to me is still, if you had me pick, I think the fight for what is my favorite rap hip hop record is probably Public Enemy, Takes the Nation of Millions, and Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory. It's that good. Everything about it is great. Q-Tip and Fife are amazing MCs. The music is wonderful. It's so jazzy and different, and it's just about perfection, and it still sounds new and fresh and awesome to me even today. Another great rap album that came out in 91, De La Soul is Dead. Totally kind of moving away, and you see the Daisy hip-hop, not hip-hop, kind of hippie thing they had going in their first album, 3 Feet High and Rising. You can see the daisies are broken and the pot's tipped over, and things are a little bit different. And there's a lot of skits, there's a lot of stuff going on, but there's amazing kind of 70s influence and tinge music on this, and it's just such a great fun record. I got lucky and got one of the Vinyl Me Please pressings that had to buy a hat and get a bundle, and that was the first time I realized that Vinyl Me Please was going to piss me off forever. But I got this record out of it, and it goes for a lot now, and I love it, and it's still such an amazing listen. So De La Soul is Dead. Two more. I can't think of what to end with. I'm going to save that one. Matthew's Sweet Girlfriend. So just one of the most amazing guitar pop albums of all time. The best Matthew Sweet album to me. There's so many amazing songs. Just right off the bat, your first four, Divine Intervention, I've Been Waiting, Girlfriend, and Looking at the Sun, are just, everything about this record is fantastic, and it's worth listening to and picking up. I've got it on this and the CD because there's some extra tracks on it, and it's just such a great record. And last, 19th, I think if I've counted right, and this video is long, it's going to be 19 minutes. Dinosaur Jr. Green Mind. Dinosaur Jr. You're Living All Over Me is probably a record that influenced me as a musician more than just about anything else. So obviously I was a huge fan of Bug when it came out, and then they jumped to a major, and I kind of wondered what would happen, and then Green Mind came out, and it's loud and it's melodic, and then it's quiet and beautiful, and it's to me still, even though I love You're Living All Over Me, I always put Green Mind kind of there with it, as far as it's as good as You're Living All Over Me. I would say those two are my favorite, and I would even say this one probably ends up on the turntables a little bit more often at times. And this is the great Cherry Red reissue that came out a few years ago with the extra LP of bonus stuff, which had been on CD before. So it is definitely worth picking up if you can still find it. So yeah, there's 19 plus 3, 22 records from 1991 that I love. And like I said, it's quite a stack. I think if you had me pick my favorite out of there, the one I would go to more than anything else, I would be very torn by that choice. I'd probably go with My Bloody Valentine, just because. But as you may have seen, like on Instagram this morning, whenever I did it, if I was going to put this on, Teenage Fanclub had to go on too, and they're just such different records and such a different feel from some of the rest of 91, and are just great. So yeah, 19 from 1991, and I feel really, really fortunate to have been young and alive and going to shows and playing in bands and being immersed in all this music, and I know it makes me seem like an old man to think that's 31 years ago, but some of those albums are still absolutely fantastic. And again, most of those you've probably heard. If there's something you haven't heard before, go check it out. If you have not heard Richard Thompson, Rumor and Sigh, you should go listen to that. If you're a guitar player, it'll change your world. So yeah, 19 from 1991. This video is almost 19 minutes long, so I'm going to get out of here because it's too long, and I will talk to you soon. Y'all have a good week.